The sound of her weeping carried across the windswept cemetery like a mourning dove's call, and Xavier stopped his horse immediately, his weathered hand instinctively going to his hat as he dismounted. The year was 1876, and the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the small graveyard outside Fairplay, Colorado, turning the granite headstones into dark sentinels watching over the departed. He had been riding through town on his way to nowhere in particular, as he had been doing for the past 3 years since losing his own family to scarlet fever. But something about that sound pierced through the armor he had built around his heart. She knelt before a fresh grave, her dark traveling dress pooling around her in the dusty earth, her shoulders shaking with the force of her grief. Her honey-colored hair had come loose from its pins, cascading down her back in waves that caught the golden light. Cole approached slowly, his boots making soft sounds in the dirt, not wanting to startle her but unable to simply ride past someone in such obvious pain. "Madam," he said gently, removing his hat and holding it against his chest. "I do not mean to intrude on your sorrow, but is there anything I can do to help?" She looked up at him with eyes the color of storm clouds, red-rimmed and swimming with tears. For a moment she seemed unable to speak, her lips trembling as she tried to form words. Finally she managed, "There is nothing anyone can do. My brother is gone." Cole looked down at the grave marker, simple wood with careful lettering that read, "Samuel James Winters, born 1854, died 1876, beloved brother." The dates told him the man had been only 22 years old. "I am sorry for your loss," he said, and he meant it with every fiber of his being. He knew what it was to lose family, to feel that crushing weight of grief that made every breath an effort. "He was all I had left," the woman continued, her voice breaking. "Our parents died 2 years ago in Ohio. Samuel and I came west to start fresh, to build something new. We had a small claim, nothing much, but it was ours. And now he is gone and I am alone." She dissolved into tears again, her hands covering her face, and Cole felt something stir in his chest, something he had thought long dead. Without thinking, he knelt beside her in the dirt, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You are not alone right now," he said softly. "Not in this moment." She looked at him again, searching his face as if trying to determine whether he was real or some apparition conjured by her grief. "Who are you?" "My name is Xavier. I have been drifting through these mountains for some time now. I saw you here and could not simply ride past." "Fiona Winters," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "My name is Fiona Winters." "Miss Winters," Cole said, still kneeling beside her, "how long have you been out here?" She looked confused for a moment, as if time had lost all meaning. "I do not know. Since this morning, I think. We buried him this morning with just the preacher and myself. There was no one else." We had only been in Fairplay for 3 months. Cole realized with alarm that she had been kneeling in the cold March wind for hours, and her hands when he touched them were like ice. "Miss Winters, you need to get warm. You will catch your death out here." "Perhaps that would be for the best," she said listlessly, and the words sent a jolt through Cole. "No," he said firmly. "Your brother would not want that. I did not know him, but I know no man would want his sister to give up on life." Fiona looked at him with those storm-gray eyes, and he saw in them a reflection of his own past despair. "How would you know what anyone would want?" she asked, but there was no anger in her voice, only exhaustion. "Because I have been where you are," Cole admitted. 3 years ago, I lost my wife and 2 children to scarlet fever. For a long time, I wished I could have gone with them. But I am still here, and eventually I learned that the dead do not want us to stop living. They want us to carry on, to honor their memory by finding whatever joy we can in this world." Fiona studied him for a long moment, and he could see her taking in his words, weighing them against her pain. "I do not know if I can," she whispered. "You do not have to know right now," Cole said. "Right now, you just need to stand up and let me take you somewhere warm. Do you have a place to stay?" She nodded slowly. "Samuel and I had a room at the boarding house, Mrs. Patterson's place." "Then let me take you there," Cole said, rising to his feet and offering her his hand. She stared at it for a moment, then placed her cold fingers in his palm and allowed him to help her up. She swayed slightly, and he steadied her with a hand at her elbow. "I cannot seem to stop shaking," she said, looking down at her trembling hands. "You are cold and you have had a terrible shock," Cole told her. He glanced at his horse, then back at the grave. "Did you walk here from town?" "Yes, it is not far." "Far enough when you are this cold. Let me help you onto my horse. I will walk alongside." Fiona looked like she wanted to protest, but her legs were clearly unsteady, and she finally nodded. Cole led his bay gelding, Ranger, closer and helped her mount. She sat side saddle, gripping the saddle horn with white knuckles, and Cole took the reins and began walking back toward town. The walk gave him time to study her more closely without being obvious about it. She was perhaps 24 or 25 years old, with delicate features that were currently ravaged by grief, but still beautiful. Her traveling dress was well made but worn, suggesting genteel poverty. Her hands, which he had felt when he helped her up, were not the soft hands of a lady of leisure but bore the calluses of someone who worked hard. "What happened to your brother?" Cole asked gently as they walked. "If you do not mind my asking." Fiona was quiet for so long he thought she might not answer, but finally she spoke. "He was working on our claim, clearing timber. A tree fell wrong and crushed him. By the time I found him, he had been gone for hours. I rode to town for the doctor, but it was already too late." "I am deeply sorry," Cole said, and meant it. "He was a good man," Fiona continued, her voice thick with tears. "He was kind and gentle, and he worked so hard. He believed we could make something of ourselves out here. He had such dreams." "Tell me about them," Cole said, surprising himself. He normally kept to himself, spoke little, and moved on quickly. But something about this woman made him want to stay to listen, to help bear the weight of her sorrow. And so she talked, her words tumbling out as they made their way slowly into town. She told him about their childhood in Ohio, about their father who had been a schoolteacher and their mother who had taken in sewing. She told him about Samuel's love of books and learning, how he had taught himself about mining and forestry in preparation for their journey west. She spoke of their dreams of building a home, perhaps eventually a small ranch, of creating a new life far from the sadness they had left behind. By the time they reached the boarding house, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Cole helped Fiona down from the horse, and she stood for a moment on the boardwalk, looking lost and uncertain. "Thank you, Mr. Xavier," she said softly. "You have been very kind to a stranger." "Will you be all right?" Cole asked, concerned. She still looked pale and shaky, and the thought of simply leaving her alone in a boarding house room troubled him deeply. "I suppose I will have to be," she replied, attempting a weak smile that did not reach her eyes. Cole made a decision. "I am going to stable my horse, and then I am going to speak with Mrs. Patterson to ensure she knows to check on you this evening. You need hot food and rest." "You do not have to do that," Fiona protested weakly. "I know," Cole said, "but I am going to anyway." True to his word, he led Ranger to the livery stable and paid for his care for the night, then returned to the boarding house. Mrs. Patterson was a stout woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner. When Cole explained the situation, she immediately took charge. "That poor dear," she said, shaking her head. "She has been so brave through all of this, but I could see she was at the breaking point. I will take her some hot soup and tea immediately, and I will keep an eye on her tonight. You are a good man for bringing her back, Mr. Xavier. Are you staying in town? Cole had not planned to, but he found himself nodding. I will take a room if you have one available. I have one down the hall from Miss Winters, Mrs. Patterson said, studying him with sharp eyes that seemed to see more than he wanted to reveal. That will be 50 cents for the night. Includes breakfast. Cole paid and took the key, then stood in the small hallway for a moment, listening to the sounds of Mrs. Patterson knocking on Fiona's door and the soft murmur of voices as she was let in. He went to his own room, a simple but clean space with a narrow bed and a washstand, and sat down heavily on the edge of the mattress. What was he doing? He had been drifting for 3 years, never staying anywhere long, never forming attachments. The pain of his losses had been too great, and he had protected himself by remaining alone. But something about Fiona Winters had broken through that protective shell. Perhaps it was seeing his own past grief reflected in her eyes. Perhaps it was simply that after 3 years of numbness, he was finally ready to feel something again. That night, Cole could not sleep. He kept thinking about Fiona alone in her room, grieving for her brother. Around midnight, he heard soft footsteps in the hallway and the sound of someone descending the stairs. He rose quickly, pulling on his boots and shirt, and followed. He found Fiona in the parlor, wrapped in a shawl and staring out the window at the moonlit street. She turned when she heard him approach, and he could see she had been crying again. I could not sleep, she said simply. Neither could I, Cole admitted. May I sit with you? She nodded, and he took a chair across from her. They sat in companionable silence for a while, and then Fiona spoke again. You think it gets easier? She asked. The grief, I mean. Cole considered his answer carefully. It gets different, he said finally. It never goes away entirely, but eventually you learn to carry it without it crushing you. The sharp edges wear down over time, and what is left is a dull ache instead of a stabbing pain. How long did it take for you? Fiona asked. Longer than it should have, Cole said honestly. I spent 3 years running from it instead of facing it. I thought if I kept moving, if I never stayed anywhere long enough to remember, it would not hurt so much. But the grief travels with you no matter where you go. Then what changed? Fiona asked, leaning forward slightly. Cole met her eyes. Today, he said quietly. Seeing you at that grave, feeling your pain, it made me realize I have been half dead myself for 3 years. Your brother was 22 years old when he died, and from what you told me, he lived fully until the end. He had dreams and worked toward them. He took care of you and tried to build something meaningful. My wife and children were taken from me, but I have wasted 3 years of the life I still have. Fiona was quiet for a long moment. So what will you do now? She asked. I do not know, Cole admitted, but I know I will not leave Fairplay tomorrow as I had planned, not until I know you are going to be all right. You barely know me, Fiona said, but there was warmth in her voice now, not coldness. That is true, Cole agreed. But I would like to know you better if you will allow it. Fiona studied him in the moonlight streaming through the window. Why? She asked simply. Cole searched for the right words. Because when I saw you today, something in me woke up that I thought had died with my family. I am not saying this to make you uncomfortable or to take advantage of your grief. I am simply being honest. You reminded me that there are still people in this world worth caring about, worth helping, worth knowing. Tears slid down Fiona's cheeks, but she was smiling slightly. You are a strange man, Cole Xavier. I suppose I am, he said, returning her small smile, but I am a man of my word. I told you that you were not alone, and I meant it. If you will let me, I would like to help you however I can. I do not even know what I need, Fiona admitted. Everything feels overwhelming. I have Samuel's claim, but I do not know what to do with it. I have very little money. I need to find work, but I do not know where to start." "Then we will figure it out together," Cole said. "Tomorrow, after you have rested, we can make a list of what needs to be done and start working through it one step at a time." "Why would you do this for me?" Fiona asked, and he could hear the genuine confusion in her voice. "Because someone should," Cole said simply, "and because I want to." They talked through most of the night, sharing stories of their pasts, their losses, their fears. Cole told her about his wife, Rebecca, and his children, Lily and Thomas. He spoke of how they had lived in Kansas, how he had been working as a ranch foreman when the fever came. He had been away buying supplies when it struck, and by the time he returned, all three were gravely ill. They had died within days of each other, and he had buried them in a small cemetery outside Lawrence. Fiona told him more about Samuel, about their journey west, about the small cabin they had built near their timber claim. She spoke of her fears about the future, about being a woman alone in a rough mining town, about not knowing if she had the strength to go on. As dawn began to lighten the sky, Mrs. Patterson found them still talking in the parlor. She gave them both a knowing look but said nothing, simply setting about making breakfast. Over eggs and biscuits, Cole and Fiona continued their conversation, and by the time they finished eating, Fiona looked more alive than she had the previous day. "I think I would like to see the claim today," she said. "I have not been back since it happened. I have been afraid to go, but I need to see it to decide what to do." "I will go with you," Cole offered immediately. "Are you certain?" Fiona asked. "I do not want to impose on your time." "You are not imposing," Cole assured her. "I told you I am staying until I know you are all right. Besides, I would like to see this claim of yours. I have some experience with timber and building. Perhaps I can be of help." They set out after breakfast, Fiona riding Ranger while Cole walked beside her, leading the way as she gave directions. The claim was about 5 miles outside of town, up a winding path into the mountains. The cabin Samuel and Fiona had built was small but sturdy, constructed of rough-hewn logs with a stone chimney. Beside it was a small cleared area where they had started a garden, and beyond that, the forest stretched up the mountainside. Fiona dismounted and stood looking at the cabin, her expression unreadable. Cole waited, giving her time to process her emotions. Finally, she walked to the door and pushed it open. Inside, everything was exactly as she and Samuel had left it. 2 narrow beds, a table with 2 chairs, a small stove, shelves with their few possessions. It was neat and clean, a testimony to Samuel's care. "He was always so tidy," Fiona said, running her hand along the table. "He said our mother taught him that cleanliness was next to godliness." Her voice broke on the last word, and Cole moved to her side, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "It is a good cabin," he said. "Your brother was skilled." "He was," Fiona agreed. "He could do anything he set his mind to. That is why this is so cruel. He survived so much, only to be taken by an accident." They walked the property together, and Cole assessed it with a practiced eye. The timber was good quality, and there was a small stream that ran along one edge of the claim. The garden area had good soil. With work, this could be a profitable little homestead. "What are you thinking?" Fiona asked, watching him. "I am thinking your brother chose well," Cole said. "This land has potential. The timber alone is valuable, and with the mining operations in Fairplay, there is always demand for lumber. The stream means water for crops and livestock. This could be something." "But I cannot work it alone," Fiona said. "I am not strong enough to fell trees or mill lumber." "No," Cole agreed, "but you could hire men to do that work, or—" He paused, not sure if he should continue. "Or what?" Fiona prompted. Cole took a breath. "Or you could have a partner." Someone who knows the work and could help you build this into something profitable. Fiona turned to look at him fully. Are you offering to be that partner? I am, Cole said, meeting her eyes. I know we have just met. I know this is sudden. But I have nothing waiting for me anywhere else and you need help. This could be mutually beneficial. I work the land, you handle the business side, we split the profits. Why would you want to tie yourself to a failing claim and a woman you just met? Fiona asked, but there was hope beginning to show in her eyes. Because I told you, something woke up in me yesterday when I met you, Cole said honestly. I have been drifting for 3 years and I am tired of it. I am tired of running from my grief. I need a purpose and this could be it. And he paused, gathering his courage. And I would like the chance to get to know you better, Fiona. I find myself wanting to see you smile, wanting to help you heal, wanting to be part of your life. Fiona's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. You are either the kindest man I have ever met or completely mad. Perhaps a bit of both, Cole said, returning her smile. All right, Fiona said, and Cole's heart leaped. Let us try this partnership. But you must understand, I am grieving and confused, and I cannot promise anything beyond that right now. I am not asking for promises, Cole said. Just a chance. They shook hands formally, sealing their agreement, and then Fiona surprised him by pulling him into a brief hug. Thank you, she whispered against his shoulder. Thank you for giving me hope. Over the next several weeks, Cole threw himself into working the claim with a vigor he had not felt in years. He repaired and expanded the cabin, adding a second room and reinforcing the walls. He surveyed the timber and marked the best trees for harvest. He hired 2 men from town to help with the heavy work of felling and hauling logs. He built a small mill near the stream and began producing lumber. Fiona proved herself to be an excellent businesswoman. She negotiated contracts with the mine operators in Fairplay and the surrounding camps, securing steady orders for lumber and timbers. She kept meticulous accounts and managed their money carefully. She also worked the garden, expanding it and planting vegetables that would feed them through the winter. They fell into an easy rhythm, working side by side during the days and sitting together in the evenings, talking and sharing meals. Slowly, Fiona began to smile more often. The haunted look in her eyes faded, replaced by something brighter. Cole felt himself coming alive again as well, finding joy in the simple pleasures of good work and good company. One evening in May, after a particularly successful day of lumber sales, they sat on the porch of the cabin watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of gold and purple. Fiona had made a special dinner to celebrate, and they had just finished eating. I never thanked you properly, Fiona said suddenly. For what? Cole asked, genuinely confused. For everything, Fiona said. For stopping that day at the cemetery. For staying. For giving me a reason to keep going. I do not think I would be here right now if not for you. I think you are stronger than you give yourself credit for, Cole said. You would have found your way. Perhaps, Fiona said, but it would have been much harder and lonelier. You gave me more than just business partnership, Cole. You gave me friendship and support when I desperately needed it. Cole reached over and took her hand, intertwining his fingers with hers. It was the first time he had initiated such contact, though they had become comfortable with each other in many small ways. You gave me something too, he said. You reminded me that life is worth living, that there is still beauty and meaning to be found in this world. Fiona squeezed his hand. I think Samuel would have liked you, she said softly. He always believed in the goodness of people, even when there was little evidence of it. You would have proven him right. They sat in comfortable silence, hands clasped, watching the stars begin to appear in the darkening sky. Cole felt a sense of peace he had not known in years, and he found himself hoping that this feeling, this life, could continue. As spring turned into summer, the relationship between Cole and Fiona deepened in ways neither of them had anticipated. Their conversations grew more personal, their laughter came more easily, and they found themselves seeking out each other's company not out of necessity, but out of desire. Cole caught himself watching Fiona as she worked in the garden, admiring the way the sunlight caught in her hair, the grace of her movements, the determination in her expression. Fiona found herself listening for the sound of Cole's voice, feeling safest and happiest when he was near. One afternoon in late June, they were working together to repair a section of fence when a thunderstorm rolled in quickly from the mountains. They ran for the cabin, but not before both were thoroughly soaked. Inside, laughing and breathless, they stood dripping on the floor. "I will get towels," Fiona said, hurrying to the small linen chest. She returned with two and handed one to Cole. As they dried off, their eyes met and something shifted between them. The laughter faded, replaced by a charged silence. "Fiona," Cole said, his voice low. "Yes." She breathed, not looking away. "I need to tell you something," he said, setting down his towel and taking a step closer to her. "These past few months have been the best of my life in a very long time. Working with you, building this life with you, it has made me happier than I thought I could ever be again, and I have come to realize that my feelings for you go beyond partnership or friendship." Fiona's breath caught. "Cole, let me finish," he said gently. "I know it has not been long since you lost Samuel. I know you are still healing. I do not want to push you or make you uncomfortable. But I also cannot keep pretending that I do not care for you deeply, that I do not think about you constantly, that I am not falling in love with you." Tears sprang to Fiona's eyes, but she was smiling. "Oh, Cole," she said, "I have been feeling the same way but was afraid to admit it. I worried it was too soon, that it would dishonor Samuel's memory somehow. But I have come to realize that Samuel would want me to be happy. He would want me to find love again, and I have found it with you." Cole closed the distance between them and cupped her face gently in his hands. "May I kiss you?" he asked softly. "Yes," Fiona whispered, and then his lips were on hers, gentle and sweet and full of promise. It was a kiss that spoke of new beginnings, of healing, of love that had grown from shared grief into something beautiful and strong. When they pulled apart, both were smiling through tears. "I love you, Fiona Winters," Cole said. "I love you too, Cole Xavier," Fiona replied, and saying the words felt like coming home. Their relationship blossomed through the summer months. They continued to work the claim during the days, but now they did so as partners in every sense of the word. They held hands as they walked the property, stole kisses when they thought no one was watching, and spent their evenings planning not just the future of the claim but their future together. In August, Cole traveled to Denver to buy supplies and returned with a small velvet box in his pocket. He had spent hours in a jewelry shop, looking for the perfect ring, something that would represent his love and commitment to Fiona. He had finally chosen a simple gold band with a small diamond, nothing ostentatious but beautiful in its simplicity. That evening, he asked Fiona to walk with him to their favorite spot on the property, a small rise that overlooked the valley with the mountains rising majestically behind them. The sun was setting, painting everything in shades of pink and orange. "Fiona," Cole began, taking both of her hands in his. "5 months ago, I was a man without purpose, without hope, just drifting through life waiting for it to be over. Then I met you and everything changed. You gave me a reason to live again, to work, to hope, to love. You have made me happier than I ever thought I could be after losing my first family. I know we cannot replace what we have lost, but I believe we can build something new and beautiful together." He released one of her hands and reached into his pocket, pulling out the small box. Fiona gasped, her free hand flying to her mouth. Cole knelt down on one knee. "Fiona Winters, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife? Would you let me spend the rest of my life loving you, supporting you, building a future with you?" Tears were streaming down Fiona's face, but she was beaming. "Yes," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "Yes, Cole, I will marry you. I cannot imagine my life without you." Cole slipped the ring onto her finger, then stood and pulled her into his arms, kissing her deeply. They held each other as the sun set, both feeling that they had been given a second chance at happiness, a gift they would never take for granted. They were married in September in the small church in Fairplay. Mrs. Patterson helped Fiona make a simple but beautiful dress of cream-colored silk, and Cole borrowed a suit from one of the men in town. The ceremony was small, attended by the few friends they had made in Fairplay, but it was perfect. As Cole and Fiona exchanged vows, promising to love and cherish each other for the rest of their lives, there was not a dry eye in the church. After the ceremony, Mrs. Patterson hosted a small reception at the boarding house. There was cake and dancing, and for the first time since Samuel's death, Fiona felt truly joyful. As she danced with her new husband, she looked up at him with such love that Cole felt his heart might burst. "I never thought I could be this happy again," Fiona said as they swayed to the music. "Neither did I," Cole replied. "But here we are, and I am grateful for every moment." That night, they returned to the cabin as husband and wife. Cole carried Fiona over the threshold, both of them laughing, and set her down gently inside. They had cleaned and decorated the cabin for the occasion, and it looked cozy and welcoming in the lamplight. "Welcome home, Mrs. Xavier," Cole said softly. "I like the sound of that," Fiona said, smiling up at him. They spent their first night as husband and wife in each other's arms, and it felt like the beginning of a wonderful new chapter in both of their lives. The winter of 1876 was hard but happy. Cole and Fiona worked together to prepare the cabin for the cold months, stocking it with firewood and supplies. When the snow came, they spent long evenings by the fire, talking and reading and simply enjoying each other's company. Cole taught Fiona to play chess, and she proved to be a quick learner, often beating him. Fiona taught Cole to cook some of her mother's old recipes, and they experimented with making their own bread and preserves. On Christmas Eve, they exchanged small gifts. Cole had carved Fiona a beautiful jewelry box from walnut wood, with her initials inlaid on the top. Fiona had knitted Cole a warm scarf and hat, which he immediately put on, declaring them the finest he had ever owned. "This is the best Christmas I have had in years," Cole said as they sat by the fire, Fiona nestled against his side. "Mine too," Fiona agreed. "Last Christmas, Samuel and I were still in Ohio preparing for our journey west. I was so full of hope and excitement then, never imagining what would happen. But if I could go back and change things, I would not, because changing the past would mean I never met you, and I cannot imagine that." Cole kissed the top of her head. "I understand," he said. "I wish I could have saved my first family, but I cannot change what happened. All I can do is honor their memory by living well, by loving well. And I do love you, Fiona, more than I can ever express in words." "I know," Fiona said. "I feel the same way about you." As winter gave way to spring in 1877, Fiona began to suspect she might be pregnant. She waited to be sure before telling Cole, wanting to be certain before raising his hopes. When the doctor in Fairplay confirmed her suspicions, she could barely contain her excitement. She told Cole that evening as they sat down to dinner. "I have some news," she said, unable to keep the smile off her face. "Good news, I hope," Cole said, setting down his fork and giving her his full attention. "Very good news," Fiona said. "Cole, I am going to have a baby." We are going to have a baby." For a moment, Cole simply stared at her, as if he could not quite process what she had said. Then his face broke into the biggest smile Fiona had ever seen. He jumped up from his chair, came around the table and swept her into his arms, spinning her around before setting her down gently, suddenly worried he had been too rough. "Are you all right? Did I hurt you? Should you be sitting down?" he asked, fussing over her. Fiona laughed, tears of joy streaming down her face. "I am fine, Cole, perfectly fine, and yes, we are going to have a baby, in the fall, the doctor thinks." Cole knelt beside her chair and placed his hand gently on her still flat stomach. "A baby," he said wonderingly. "Our baby. Are you happy?" Fiona asked, though his reaction had made the answer obvious. "Happy does not even begin to describe it," Cole said, looking up at her with eyes full of love and wonder. "I thought I would never have this again, never be a father again. This is a gift beyond measure." Over the next months, Cole was attentive to the point of being overprotective. He insisted Fiona rest more, hired a woman from town to help with the heavier housework, and fretted over her constantly. Fiona found it both endearing and occasionally exasperating, but she loved him for his care. As her pregnancy progressed, they spent evenings talking about their hopes and dreams for their child. Cole spoke of teaching their son or daughter to ride, to work with their hands, to appreciate the beauty of the mountains. Fiona talked about teaching their child to read and write, to be kind and generous, to honor the memory of those who had come before. "You hope for a boy or a girl?" Fiona asked one evening as Cole's hand rested on her swollen belly, feeling the baby kick. "I do not care," Cole said honestly. "As long as the baby is healthy and you are safe, that is all that matters to me." "I feel the same way," Fiona said, "though I have been thinking about names." "What names?" Cole asked. "If it is a boy, I would like to name him Samuel Cole after my brother and you," Fiona said. "If that is all right with you," Cole's eyes filled with tears. "I would be honored," he said. "And if it is a girl?" "I thought perhaps Rebecca Rose after your first wife and because roses were my mother's favorite flower," Fiona suggested. Cole had to wipe his eyes. "That is perfect," he said. "You are perfect. How did I get so lucky?" "We both got lucky," Fiona said, taking his hand. "We found each other when we both needed someone most. We were given a second chance at happiness and we took it." In October of 1877, on a crisp autumn morning with golden leaves swirling outside the cabin windows, Fiona went into labor. Cole rode into Fairplay at breakneck speed to fetch the doctor and Mrs. Patterson, who had offered to help with the delivery. The next hours were the longest of Cole's life as he paced outside the cabin, listening to Fiona's labored breathing and occasional cries of pain. Finally, just as the sun was setting, he heard the most beautiful sound he had ever heard, the cry of a newborn baby. Mrs. Patterson came to the door, smiling broadly. "You have a son," she said. "A healthy, beautiful boy, and your wife is doing well." Cole rushed inside to find Fiona exhausted but radiant, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in blankets. She looked up at him with tears streaming down her face, and he knelt beside the bed, looking down at his son in wonder. "Hello, Samuel Cole, Xavier," Fiona said softly. "Meet your father." Cole reached out with a trembling finger to touch his son's tiny hand, and the baby grasped it reflexively. In that moment, Cole felt a surge of love so powerful it took his breath away. "He is perfect," he whispered. "You are both perfect." Over the next weeks, Cole threw himself into fatherhood with the same dedication he brought to everything he cared about. He changed diapers, walked the floor with Samuel when he cried in the night, and marveled at every small development. Watching Fiona nurse their son, seeing the love in her eyes as she looked down at the baby, Cole felt a contentment he had never known before. Little Samuel was a good baby, healthy and happy, with his mother's gray eyes and his father's dark hair. As he grew, his personality emerged, and they discovered he was curious about everything, always watching, always taking in the world around him. When Samuel was 6 months old, on a warm spring day in 1878, Cole and Fiona took him to visit Samuel's grave. It was the first time Fiona had been back since Cole had found her there nearly 2 years before. She knelt beside the grave, holding the baby, and spoke softly. "Samuel, I want you to meet your nephew. We named him after you because you were the best brother anyone could ask for. I think you would have liked Cole, and I know you would have loved this little one. We are doing well, Sam. We built something good from the claim you started. Cole and I have a happy life, and we are raising your nephew to know about you, to understand what a good man you were." Cole stood behind her, his hand on her shoulder, adding his own silent thanks to the man he had never met, but who had brought him to Fiona. As the years passed, life on the claim continued to thrive. The lumber business did well, allowing them to expand their holdings and eventually buy some cattle. Samuel grew into a bright, energetic boy who loved riding horses with his father and listening to his mother read stories in the evenings. When Samuel was 3 years old, Fiona discovered she was pregnant again. This time, she gave birth to a daughter in the summer of 1881, and they named her Rebecca Rose as they had discussed years before. The little girl had her father's warm brown eyes and her mother's honey-colored hair, and from the moment she was born, she had everyone wrapped around her tiny finger. Samuel was a devoted big brother, always wanting to help care for his baby sister, to show her things, to protect her. Watching their children together, Cole and Fiona felt blessed beyond measure. In 1883, when Samuel was 5 and Rebecca was 2, Fiona became pregnant for a third time. This pregnancy was harder than the previous two, and Cole worried constantly. But in the spring of 1884, Fiona safely delivered twin boys, whom they named Thomas James and William Henry, honoring Cole's first son and both of their fathers. With 4 children under the age of 7, life became wonderfully chaotic. The cabin had been expanded multiple times over the years, and now had 4 bedrooms, a large kitchen, and a proper sitting room. Cole had built a barn and several outbuildings, and they had a small herd of cattle in addition to the lumber operation. Xavier grew into a responsible young man who loved working alongside his father. Rebecca was bright and creative, always drawing or making up elaborate stories. The twins were mischievous and energetic, keeping everyone on their toes. Through it all, Cole and Fiona's love for each other only deepened. Even with the chaos of raising 4 children and running a business, they made time for each other. They took evening walks together when the children were in bed, sat on the porch watching the sunset, and never failed to tell each other, "I love you," every single day. On their 10th wedding anniversary in September of 1886, Cole surprised Fiona with a trip to Denver, leaving the children with Mrs. Patterson for a few days. They stayed in a fine hotel, ate in restaurants, and enjoyed being alone together for the first time in years. "You ever regret it?" Fiona asked as they walked through the city streets hand in hand. Taking on a grieving woman and all the complications that came with her, Cole stopped walking and turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "Not for a single moment," he said firmly. "Finding you at that grave was the best thing that ever happened to me. You saved my life, Fiona. You gave me a reason to live again, to hope again, to love again. These past 10 years have been the happiest of my life." "Mine too," Fiona said, reaching up to cup his face. "I was so lost when you found me, so broken. I truly did not think I could go on. but you showed me that life could be beautiful again, that love could bloom even from the deepest grief. You gave me everything I could ever want: a home, a family, a partnership, a great love." They kissed there on the street, not caring who saw. Two people who had found each other at their lowest points and had built a beautiful life together. As the years continued to pass, the Xavier family became well known and respected in Fairplay and the surrounding area. Cole was known as an honest businessman and a skilled craftsman. Fiona was respected for her intelligence and her generous spirit, always ready to help neighbors in need. Their children were raised to be hardworking, kind, and respectful. Samuel Jr., as they often called him to distinguish him from his uncle, showed early signs of being a natural leader. He was calm and thoughtful, with a gift for solving problems and mediating disputes between his siblings. Cole often thought he would make a fine lawyer or politician someday, though Samuel insisted he wanted to stay on the ranch and eventually take over the family business. Rebecca developed a love of books, and learning that reminded Fiona of her brother. She was always reading, always asking questions, always curious about the world. When she was 12, she announced she wanted to be a teacher, and both Cole and Fiona encouraged her dreams. The twins, Thomas and William, were inseparable and full of mischief. They were adventurous and fearless, always exploring the mountains, always coming home with scraped knees and wild stories. They kept the family laughing with their antics, though they also drove their parents to distraction at times. In 1895, when Samuel Jr. was 18, he met a young woman named Catherine Miller at a church social. She was the daughter of a merchant in town, with bright blue eyes and a quick smile. Samuel was immediately smitten, and over the next year he courted her properly, with Cole and Fiona's blessing. Watching his oldest son fall in love reminded Cole of his own journey with Fiona. He gave Samuel advice on love and marriage, emphasizing the importance of communication, respect, and never taking each other for granted. Samuel and Catherine were married in 1896, and the wedding was the biggest celebration Fairplay had seen in years. As Cole watched his son exchange vows with his bride, he felt Fiona's hand slip into his. He looked at her and saw tears on her cheeks. "Are you all right?" he whispered. "I am wonderful," she whispered back. "I am just thinking about how far we have come. 20 years ago, I was kneeling at my brother's grave, thinking my life was over. And now look at us. We have raised a son to manhood, and he is starting his own family. We have 3 other beautiful children. We have built a good life. All because you stopped that day and offered me kindness when I desperately needed it." Cole squeezed her hand. "We built this life together," he said. "You were not the only one who was saved that day. I was drifting, lost in my grief with no purpose. You gave me a reason to live again." After the ceremony, at the reception, Cole stood to give a toast. 20 years ago," he began, his voice strong and clear, "I met the woman who would become my wife under the worst of circumstances. She was grieving the loss of her beloved brother, and I was a lonely man who had lost his way. But from that meeting, something beautiful grew. We built a life together based on mutual respect, hard work, and deep love. We have been blessed with 4 wonderful children, and now we have the joy of seeing our eldest start his own family. Samuel, Catherine, I wish for you the same kind of love that your mother and I have shared. May you support each other through hard times, celebrate each other's joys, and never forget that the commitment you made today is the foundation of everything you will build together." There was not a dry eye in the room as he raised his glass. To Samuel and Catherine, and to love that endures. As the years rolled on, the Xavier family continued to grow and prosper. Samuel and Catherine had 3 children of their own, making Cole and Fiona grandparents. Rebecca went to Denver to attend normal school and became a teacher, eventually returning to Fairplay to teach at the local school. The twins both chose to stay on the ranch, helping Cole expand the operation. In 1906, Cole and Fiona celebrated their 30th wedding anniversary. Their children organized a surprise party, inviting friends and family from all over Colorado. As Cole and Fiona stood surrounded by their children, grandchildren, and friends, they marveled at how their lives had unfolded. 30 years, Fiona said to Cole as they danced together while everyone watched. Can you believe it? Sometimes it feels like yesterday that I found you at that grave, Cole said. Other times it feels like we have been together forever, but every day has been a gift. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you had just ridden past that day? Fiona asked. Sometimes, Cole admitted. And it terrifies me. I was so close to simply continuing on my way, to staying locked in my grief and loneliness, but something made me stop. Maybe it was fate, or divine intervention, or just random chance. Whatever it was, I will be grateful for it until the day I die. As will I, Fiona said, resting her head on his shoulder as they swayed to the music. You saved my life that day, Xavier. And you have been saving it every day since. In their later years, Cole and Fiona gradually handed over more responsibilities to their children. Samuel Jr. took over management of the lumber business, while the twins ran the cattle operation. Rebecca continued teaching while raising her own family. Cole and Fiona remained active, but also finally had time to simply enjoy each other's company. They took long walks together every morning, exploring the land they had worked for so many years. They sat on the porch in the evenings, holding hands and watching the sunset paint the mountains in brilliant colors. They visited with their grandchildren, telling them stories of the old days and passing on the family history. One evening in the spring of 1915, when Cole was 63 and Fiona was 61, they sat on their porch watching yet another beautiful Colorado sunset. They had been married for 38 years, and their love had only grown stronger with time. Do you remember what you said to me that first night at the boarding house? Fiona asked, her hand clasped in Cole's. I said a lot of things that night, Cole replied with a smile. You said that grief gets different over time, that the sharp edges wear down and what is left is a dull ache instead of a stabbing pain, Fiona said. You were right. I still miss Samuel, even after all these years, but it does not hurt the way it did. Instead, I can think of him with love and gratitude for the time we had together. I feel the same about Rebecca and the children I lost, Cole said. I will always love them and miss them, but that loss no longer defines me. What defines me now is the life we have built together, the family we have raised, the love we share. We have been very lucky, Fiona said. Lucky and blessed, Cole agreed. I think about that day I found you at the cemetery, and I realize it was the turning point of my life. Everything good that has happened since stems from that moment when I decided to stop and offer comfort to a stranger. I was praying for a miracle that day, Fiona admitted. I was so lost and alone, and I asked God to send me a sign that I should keep going, and then you appeared. You were the answer to my prayer, Cole. Cole raised her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. Then I am honored to have been the answer. And you were the answer to prayers I did not even know I was praying. You gave me back my life, my hope, my capacity for joy and love. You are the greatest gift I have ever received. They sat in comfortable silence as the sun slipped below the horizon, and the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. Around them, the land they had worked and loved for nearly 4 decades settled into the quiet of evening. Inside the house, they could hear the laughter of their grandchildren, who had come for dinner and were being spoiled by their parents. "This is what heaven must be like," Fiona said softly. "If heaven is better than this, I cannot even imagine it," Cole replied. As they sat together, hands clasped, watching the stars emerge one by one, both reflected on the unlikely journey that had brought them to this moment. From grief and loss had come love and life. From despair had come hope. From loneliness had come family and community. Xavier had been drifting through life, lost in his sorrow, when he heard a woman weeping over a grave and made the choice to stop and offer comfort. That single act of kindness had changed both of their lives completely. Fiona Winters had been at her lowest point, ready to give up, when a stranger showed her that compassion and connection were still possible. Together, they had built not just a successful ranch and business, but a real home filled with love, laughter, and the kind of deep contentment that comes from building a life with your true partner. They had raised children who were kind and hardworking, who understood the value of family and the importance of helping others. They had created a legacy that would continue through generations. "I love you, Fiona Xavier," Cole said, as he had said countless times over the past 38 years. "I love you too, Xavier," Fiona replied, the words as meaningful now as they had been the first time she said them. Forever and always. As the years continued to advance, Cole and Fiona aged gracefully together. They were blessed to remain in relatively good health, able to continue their morning walks and evening porch sitting well into their 70s. Their love remained constant, a steady flame that had burned brightly for more than 4 decades. In the summer of 1925, the family gathered to celebrate Cole and Fiona's 50th wedding anniversary. It was an enormous celebration, with children, grandchildren, and even several great-grandchildren in attendance. Friends came from as far away as Denver to honor the couple who had become legendary in the region for their enduring love and the success they had built from tragedy. During the celebration, Samuel Jr. stood to speak about his parents. Now 57 years old himself, with silver threading through his dark hair, he looked remarkably like his father had at that age. "I cannot remember a time when I did not know my parents loved each other deeply," he began. "Growing up, we children always knew we were loved and valued, but we also knew that Mom and Dad's relationship was the foundation of our family. They showed us every day what real love looks like. It is not just romance and grand gestures. It is partnership and respect. It is supporting each other through hard times and celebrating each other's successes. It is choosing each other every single day, year after year." He paused, his voice growing thick with emotion. "But what many people do not know is how my parents met, and I think their story is important to share. My father was a man lost in grief, drifting aimlessly after losing his first family. My mother had just lost her beloved brother and saw no reason to continue. They met at my Uncle Samuel's grave, 2 broken people who found each other at exactly the right moment. From that meeting grew one of the greatest love stories I have ever known. They saved each other, and in doing so, they created a family that has blessed all of us." He raised his glass. "To Cole and Fiona Xavier, who taught us all what devotion really means, may we all be so lucky in love." Cole and Fiona, both with tears streaming down their faces, stood and embraced their son, then looked out at the sea of faces before them. Their family, their legacy, their greatest achievement. "Thank you all for being here," Cole said, his voice still strong despite his 73 years. "Fiona and I have been blessed beyond measure. We started with nothing but each other, and look at what we have now. This beautiful family, these wonderful friends, this life we have built. None of it would have been possible without the grace of God and the love we have shared." Fiona added, her voice clear and sweet, "I want all of you to know, especially the younger ones, that love can bloom in the most unlikely places. It can grow from grief and loss and become something beautiful. Never give up hope. Never think it is too late for happiness. Cole and I are living proof that second chances exist, and that love can heal even the deepest wounds. The celebration continued late into the night, with music and dancing and storytelling. Cole and Fiona danced together, moving slowly but gracefully, their bodies still knowing each other's movements after all these years. They were surrounded by love, by family, by the tangible evidence of a life well lived. As they prepared for bed that night, helping each other with buttons and laces as they had done for 50 years, they reflected on the day. "That was quite a party," Cole said, settling into bed beside Fiona. "It was perfect," Fiona agreed, snuggling against his side, her head on his shoulder as it had been for countless nights. "Did you ever imagine when you found me at that grave that we would end up here?" "Honestly," Cole said, "no, I had no idea where that day would lead. I just knew I could not ride past someone in such pain. I knew I had to try to help." "And help you did," Fiona said. "You helped me back to life, and in the process you found your own way back too." "We helped each other," Cole insisted. "That is what love is, I think. Two people choosing to face life together, to support and encourage each other, to build something greater than either could create alone." Cole and Fiona lived several more happy years together, continuing to be active in their families' lives and the fair play community. They became beloved figures, known for their wisdom, generosity, and the obvious devotion they showed each other. In the fall of 1929, just after their 54th wedding anniversary, Cole became ill. It started as a cold but developed into pneumonia. Despite the best efforts of the doctor and his family, Cole passed away peacefully in his sleep on an October morning, with Fiona holding his hand. The grief Fiona felt was profound, but it was different from the raw, desperate pain she had experienced when Samuel died 53 years before. This was the grief of someone who had been blessed with a long, happy marriage and was now facing the inevitable separation that comes to all couples eventually. She missed Cole terribly, felt his absence in every moment, but she also felt grateful for the 54 years they had shared. At Cole's funeral, the church was packed with people whose lives he had touched. Fiona sat in the front row, surrounded by her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, drawing strength from the family she and Cole had created together. After the service, Fiona asked Samuel Jr. to take her to the cemetery. She wanted a moment alone with Cole to say the things that were in her heart. Standing before his fresh grave, Fiona spoke softly. "My darling Cole, thank you for stopping that day. Thank you for seeing me at my worst and offering me kindness and hope. Thank you for loving me so well and for so long. Thank you for the children we raised and the life we built. Thank you for 54 years of devotion, partnership, and love. I will miss you every moment until we meet again, but I will not despair. You taught me that grief does not have to destroy us, that we can carry our losses and still find joy. I will live the rest of my days honoring the love we shared and the lessons you taught me." She placed a single rose on the grave, then turned to leave. As she walked away, she felt a sense of peace. Cole was gone, but he had left her with so much. A loving family, a secure home, a lifetime of beautiful memories, and the knowledge that true love, when nurtured and honored, could last a lifetime and beyond. Fiona lived for 3 more years after Cole's passing, surrounded by her family and remaining active in the community. She spent time with her grandchildren and great-grandchildren, telling them stories of their grandfather and the early days of the ranch. She taught the younger generations the lessons she and Cole had learned over their long lives together. In the spring of 1932, at the age of 78, Fiona passed away quietly in her sleep. The family buried her next to Cole, and on the shared headstone, Samuel Jr. had inscribed, "Cole and Fiona Xavier, united in life, united in death, an example of devotion that will live forever." At the funeral, Samuel Jr. spoke once more about his parents, this time with his own children and grandchildren listening. "My parents taught us that love is not just a feeling but a choice we make every day," he said. "They showed us that from the darkest moments can come the most beautiful blessings. They demonstrated that partnership, respect, and devotion are the foundations of a lasting marriage. They met as two broken people and helped each other become whole. They took a small timber claim and built an empire. They started with nothing but each other and created a family that spans generations." He paused, looking at the casket that held his mother's body, soon to be lowered into the ground next to his father. "But perhaps most importantly, they taught us to never give up hope. My father could have ridden past my mother that day at the cemetery. My mother could have sent him away. But they were both brave enough to accept help and offer it, to open their hearts despite their pain, to trust in the possibility of happiness again. And because of that bravery, all of us are here today." The family gathered at the ranch after the funeral, filling the house that Cole and Fiona had built and expanded over the years. As they shared memories and tears, laughter and love, it was clear that Cole and Fiona's legacy would continue for generations to come. Years later, the story of Cole and Fiona Xavier became something of a legend in Fairplay and the surrounding area. People spoke of the lonely cowboy who found a woman weeping over her brother's grave and offered comfort that became devotion. They told of how two people, broken by loss, had found each other and built a life that became the envy of everyone who knew them. The ranch continued to thrive, passed down through the family. Samuel Jr.'s children took over after he retired, and then their children after them. Each generation was taught the story of Cole and Fiona, and each generation tried to live up to the example they had set. The Xavier family became known not just for their business success, but for their strong marriages, their devotion to family, and their generosity to their community. They embodied the values that Cole and Fiona had lived by, and they made sure those values were passed on to each new generation. In the cemetery outside Fairplay, 3 graves stood together. Samuel James Winters, the brother whose death had brought Cole and Fiona together, and Cole and Fiona Xavier, the couple whose love had grown from that tragic meeting. Visitors to the cemetery often stopped at these graves, touched by the story behind them. The story of Cole and Fiona demonstrated a profound truth: that love can bloom in the most unlikely circumstances, that hope can be found even in the depths of despair, and that two people who choose to face life together can overcome anything. Their meeting at a graveside, which could have been just a brief moment of comfort between strangers, instead became the foundation of a love story that spanned more than half a century and touched countless lives. Cole Xavier had been a man adrift, lost in grief and loneliness, searching for a reason to keep living. Fiona Winters had been a woman broken by loss, seeing no path forward. In finding each other, they had both been saved. In choosing to stay, to work together, to build a life as partners, they had created something beautiful and lasting. Their love was not the passionate, tempestuous love of youth. It was something deeper and more enduring, a love built on mutual respect, shared experiences, and daily choices to put each other first. It was a love that had been tested by hardship and strengthened by triumph. It was a love that had created a family, built a business, and left a legacy that would echo through generations. The simple act of stopping to offer comfort to a weeping stranger had changed two lives completely and had rippled out to affect hundreds of others. It was a testament to the power of compassion, the importance of reaching out to those in pain, and the possibility that exists in every moment for transformation and grace. On quiet evenings in Fairplay, when the sun set behind the mountains and painted the sky in shades of gold and purple, those who knew the story of Cole and Fiona would sometimes pause and think of them. They would remember the lonely cowboy and the grieving woman, and how a chance meeting at a graveside had blossomed into one of the greatest love stories the town had ever known. They would remember that from sorrow can come joy, from loss can come love, and from despair can come hope. And in remembering, they would be inspired to be a little kinder, a little braver, a little more willing to reach out to those in pain. Because you never knew when a simple act of compassion might change everything. You never knew when offering comfort might lead to devotion, when a moment of kindness might bloom into a lifetime of love. That was the legacy of Cole and Fiona Xavier. Not just the ranch they built or the family they raised, but the example they set of how love could heal, how partnership could strengthen, and how two people who chose each other every single day could create something that would outlast them both. Their story lived on, told and retold, a beacon of hope for anyone who had known loss, anyone who felt alone, anyone who wondered if happiness was still possible. The answer, Cole and Fiona's life together proclaimed, was always yes. Love was always possible. Hope was always justified. And the best days might still be ahead, if only we were brave enough to accept help when it was offered and compassionate enough to offer it when it was needed.